Okay, in fact, we are now live. So, hello there,
Hello.
everyone. Just making sure the stream is working. I can see that I can be heard. Dave, say hello.
Hello, I will be heard.
And you are being heard. So, oh, it still says Extreme Improv behind me. But don't worry, I forgot to update that bit. This is this Superkick Mania Pro Wrestling podcast, and today we're going to be talking about
Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
I'm busy.
Joe, actually, right, before we get into that, so you know how when someone sneezes, you can say, bless your Gesundheit?
Yeah.
Is there like a third
Yeah.
thing you can say?
The third thing I would say is if on the second or third time I would take a quote from Seinfeld and say, "You are really good looking." Which
Okay,
if you know Seinfeld, then you'll know what.
Okay, I don't quite get the reference, but it sounds a good option. Okay, let's get something wrestling themed behind me. Here I see the Nature Boy Ric Flair. I might change that later. So, oh, look at that. They never make these photos. It just looks like I've got wings, basically. Okay, so, the wrestling podcast today. Dave, what would you like to talk about?
I don't talk about anything. We haven't really talked about like the latest AEW stuff, so we can talk about AEW maybe a little bit and talk about like the Fight Fest stuff and the Fight of the Fallen, whatever it was.
Yeah, Fight for the Fallen.
There, sort of like the fallout from that. But we also will go before we sort of had our little break due to everything going on in the Brit wrestler sort of scene. So like this, the days before that, we were collating a few attempts at interacting with some wrestlers on Twitter and things like that, and sort of getting some positive interactions. Apart from anything else, it's very easy to get a negative interaction with some wrestlers online. But
that's very true.
I wanted to sort of like combine the two sort of things we've been doing with this podcast and obviously with the Extreme Improv stuff, and sort of asked about any stories from like wrestlers or fans or any times they've really enjoyed or seen really good improvisation in a match or in a situation at a show, because there must have been times where things have obviously gone wrong.
Yeah.
And you have the show must go on mentality and things like that. And I'm not talking about if someone's like had a bad injury and things like that and they've got to carry on with the show. I'm not talking about like the vicious leg break in WCW or anything like that. I'm not talking about things like that. I mean, things that are just funny things that happen. So, I mean, in terms of TV and pay-per-view, there are loads of things you can probably mention, having maybe seen live and maybe they've ended up on a Botchamania or something.
Yeah.
In future times. Got a funny sort of like thing happened on Progress Wrestling's unboxing from this past sort of New Year's sort of time when they were having this weird little segment involved and ended up in sort of like an in joke for the fans. So I ended up having a reverse battle royal by a bunch of about 9 or 10 wrestlers who wrestled from the stage to get and to be the last one not in the ring. So it was a strange match, but it was interesting. So I was front row with some friends of mine, and I ended up getting wrestled on. At one point, there was a bit where a guy called Chris Ridgway was wrestling some other person I'm not going to mention. He was implicated in that whole speaking out thing. But they decided to have a little grappling contest, leg hooks and all sorts of other things. And they were wrestling like by our feet, and then at some point they managed somehow to climb onto us in the front row and just kept wrestling on the front row, which was hilarious. There's been sort of some fun interactions with things like that before, but when you're live at a show, the interactions can be quite good fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, okay, so for clarity, so you asked this to people and did people respond?
They did indeed. So I had quite a few things on my Twitter, so if anyone wants to see them, my Twitter is @Degrino, and they're sort of in my sort of mentions and things like that. So, as I say, I've got a friend of mine called Ross, who goes by the moniker of RJ Singh, who's a Brit wrestling legend. He very helpfully sort of retweeted it and everything like that, and I had a few wrestlers get back in touch with me. So, let's have a little look. So, for instance, have you heard of Grado?
Yeah, of course.
Grado, very comedic wrestler anyway. A guy called Jamie Keith said in a 6-man tag with Grado, for some reason he's eating a banana before we go out, and I asked him if he can either eat it in his entrance put the peel in his bum bag, and during the match throw it in the ring, and I'd do a banana peel spot. So they just made this whole thing up, and he threw it in the ring. Apparently, it went down absolutely brilliantly. He timed it perfectly or something like that. So little like momentary thing of like, let's do this, and then it just worked. Something like that. So they've done things like that. There was, and that happened at WrestleZone apparently. Let's have a little look. There was one I saw that I didn't mention as well, and didn't get back from the company themselves. Actually, back in they sort of clarified something. But I went to a show in my local town, Raleigh, and for a group called WrestleForce, and in the opening match, was these two quite big guys, a match between a guy called Josh Faulkner and another guy called Styx, who's also a bit of a Brit wrestler. At one point, very early on in the match, Styx sort of like got on the second rope to pose, do like the whole sort of I'm a bad guy, ha 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 pose sort of thing. And as he did that, one of the ring ropes broke. As he did that, as he got up on the second rope. So the ropes apparently were not good enough according to the company or something like that. They just weren't. They didn't have very good ropes. But apparently they just crumbled off or have it in the corner and he came off. So to sort of give the ring crew a bit of time to sort of switch the ropes around and like so that the middle rope was no longer say like switched it around with the bottom rope. While I was doing that, Styx got on the microphone, and he's quite a big guy. He's not a fat guy or anything like that, but he's a big muscular guy sort of thing. But he got on the microphone, and this is a family sort of like show, and he got on the microphone and said, "Look, don't make fun of me for my weight. My weight did not cause that. I'm very anxious about my weight, so don't make fun of it. Do not." And of course, it's trying to make the kids call him all that sort of stuff to get on him for that. And it just brilliant. It was just a really good bit of improvisation, just to totally just take that and just like give cover for the guys who are trying to fix the ring at that point, and then to carry on the match. But it was the mark of a veteran there. I really enjoyed that. Something that happens. Does that ever happen to you like in a show, David, where something just has gone wrong and you've had to like talk your way out of it, as it were?
What do you mean, like an improv show?
Well, not an improv show, because obviously we can do that.
Oh, any show. Yeah, it's happened to me loads and loads of times. So I can definitely give examples from stuff I've done like in theatre and that, which I will do in a second. But when you said about when you get like the kids at the show, and like when you go to one of these shows where years and years ago my family went to a Butlins holiday camp, and they'd have the shows where they would like sell merchandise to the children, including like those blow up mallets so that you could hit the wrestlers with them. And I was probably pushing like the age limit of how old they'd actually want you to be doing this. So with my inflatable mallet, I could really I could give a good swing with it. And I completely forget the wrestler who it would have been back then. But I'm trying to remember who there was, like wrestlers like James Mason. Do you remember James Mason at all?
Yeah, James Mason,
and Legend of Doom, as it was. I've got another story which I may have told before.
Ricky Knight.
Yeah, there you go. And there was people like this on the show, and there was a bad guy. I can't remember who it was. But like, I just got up and I literally, it was like this was like the early 1990s, so pre-Roman Reigns, but it was basically a Superman punch with this thing, where I just sort of like hopped off of a chair to deliver this swing with this inflatable mallet. And whoever it was, this bad guy hit, it like really stung like across the back, and I felt like I was like Superman, I felt like the mighty Thor. And he turned around, and he went like this, and he grabbed the mallet from me, and he didn't hit me hard, but he hit me hard enough. He hit me back with it, which was clearly improvisation. You could see that he half found it funny, but he half meant it as well. He kind of like couldn't believe. I think he expected to turn around and see that it was an adult, which they must have had happen before. But when he saw it was still a kid, I was like 10 or something. But there was like 5-year-olds doing it, but I was really going for it as a 10-year-old. Then I did get a little bit of a whack at a show at the Civic Centre in Aylesbury, which doesn't exist anymore. They knocked it down. There was a bunch of these shows, and they were all fairly terrible. They'd advertise like famous American wrestlers being there who just no show. I may have told this story before, that Rikishi, Fatu, before he was even known as Rikishi, and Yokozuna were going to be on a show, and their excuse was that they needed to buy 2 plane tickets for Yokozuna and hadn't arranged it. And for some reason that meant that neither of them could come, but regardless.
Well, that's their fault. They can't just not looking at Yokozuna and think, should we just make sure he can actually get in the seat?
I just don't think it was true. I think it was just like the lamest excuse they could come up with. Because okay, so if they'd booked 2 tickets, and Yokozuna and Rikishi are coming, and Yokozuna can't make it, why does Rikishi not appear? Right. Anyway,
family, and he said he was probably standing up with his cousin.
Yeah, it could be. That's a fair point.
I mean, that's the old thing, isn't it? Andre the Giant had to have two seats and any transport, didn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so and again, I may have said this story before, but the Legend of Doom. When I'd seen him when I was like 10 years old at Butlins, to me it was Road Warrior Hawk. Hawk was there. This is amazing. When it was a few years later and I saw him, and the Legion of Doom act wasn't even on WWE TV, and it was like 2001 or whatever. Me and my family we just got the chant going of OLD, which he didn't appreciate, and he was just like this, and he just flung his sweat. There was the wrestler Drew McDonald. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
We started singing "Drew McDonald Had a Farm," and he came back out on stage because he was leaving, and he heard it, and he grabbed the mic. I was like a professional heckler when I was younger, right? But what did he say? It was like, if Drew McDonald had a farm, then you must be a couple of sheep or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a good improvisational put down to us, which we really enjoyed. There was the Liverpool lad Robbie Brookside, who at the time was going by the name Wildcat Robbie Brookside or something like this. He had got a different name. And I was like, Liverpool lad! And he turned around and he looked so genuinely thrilled. And he was like, you remember? Because, wrestling was in a very down point, especially in this country at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, like this. But the thing which I hadn't said... is he'd done some botch, and what I'd actually shouted was, Liverpool lad, that sucks. And he just turned around and he's like, you remember? And I felt so bad. He'd done some botch, and he wasn't a heel, but he'd just done something. I was like, that's funny. And I was just, because I knew him as the Liverpool lad, but he seemed so pleased. Then that genuinely got me on side with him for the rest of the match. But in terms of stuff on stage that I've done, there's been loads of things, I'm sure. I did a play. I won't mention the company name, but I did a play in London. It was a version of the Leo Tolstoy. It was an adaptation of Anna Karenina, and I had to run off the stage at a certain bit, all very happy that I'm going off to do something, and the actress playing Anna Karenina was just randomly in the wings one night. It was pitch black, and she went bang straight into it. We completely clashed heads, right? And she was going to come on in about 2 scenes time. I don't know why she was suddenly randomly there, and I was just like, this, holding my face, like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she was just flailing her arms, like, get away, sort of thing. And so I was like, whoa, you haven't been here the last 15 shows that we've done. But then when we were backstage, I was like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. And I was like, and she seemed a bit flippant. I was like, well, why were you there? I was like, sort of thing. This isn't even improvisation. It just came to my mind as something unexpected I had to deal with. But an improvisation thing, I did a production of Romeo and Juliet. I played Benvolio in it. And I'd got the line when I come on stage about... Mercutio, the day is hot, or something like this. And yet we were doing it indoors. It was meant to be an outdoor performance, but it was pouring with rain. And so they'd moved the production indoors, and it was very makeshift. But to where it had been moved indoors, there wasn't proper wings or anything. So we would literally have to go around the building. And so I came in soaking wet, and I was like, well, this line doesn't make sense. Not Benvolio, Mercutio, the day is hot. So I just came in, I was like, Mercutio, the day is wet, like this, and just changed up the line. And then in the fight that we had in this, it was like the show where everything went wrong. There was a fight sequence where I'd got some sort of necklace of beads on, and someone just grabbed it, one of the Montagues or Capulets, whichever one of the opposing team were, grabbed it, and it just exploded everywhere with all of these beads all over the stage. And so we always just had to, in our lines, find the reasons to pick these stuff up. But yeah, this stuff does happen.
Yeah. Oh, no, but I mean, there's two that come to mind where I had to like talk my way out or something. I was doing a production of Relative Values by Noel Coward, and two of us were on stage. And we're supposed to the oil lines up to the point where a phone's going to ring. And wouldn't you know it, we have someone on the sound who is not the brightest and not the most quickest off the draw. And so apparently they did play the sound, but they hadn't checked that all the cables were connected and working and anything like that. So the sound of the phone did not come, and we stood there for a moment. What felt like insanity. So just talked to each other and tried to talk to each other in the Noel Coward sort of scripted way and everything. And then I said, would you be able to bring the downstairs to the something and something? I said, of course. And I had to I picked up, and I pretended it was one of those weird instances where you pick up the phone just as someone else is ringing.
Oh, right.
And so I think we've all done it at some point with a fluke moment with a phone up and then dial something and go, oh, sorry, is there someone there? Hello. So I did that, basically. I said, of course. Oh, hello. Oh, I must have picked up as you rang. Sorry, there we are. Oh, and I carried on the thing. Oh, it's Prodigal Son. Here we are. And carried on from there. And it was brilliant. And then the fact was that later that night or the next day, found out what the reason was and everything. And I said to the guys at stand, I said, you will check like every effect like before the show starts now, and anything like that, in case that happens. Apparently, it wasn't coming out of one speaker or something like that, one side, or it was a one-sided effect or something like that. So it was going to come out if it didn't come out of one lead. And he said, "Oh, yeah, it'll be fine." Wouldn't you know it? 2 nights later, the same mistake happens. I was like,
oh my gosh! Yeah.
I picked up the phone, did the same thing, looking at the sound desk.
Yeah.
And there was one time when I was 15 or 16. It was my GCSE year, and I was in a youth production of Guys and Dolls in Maslin. I was playing Benny Down Street, biggest part I ever had at that point. And we were going to come off this scene, the lights were going to come up, and this is in dress rehearsal, wasn't an actual show, thank goodness.
Yeah.
This is one of our rehearsals, either the tech or the dress. I got on stage, ready for my bit. I was on stage, and the lights were supposed to come up on me and quite a few other people, gangsters and like that, and whatnot, most of the chorus. And we're going into the scene, and the lights came up, and I was the only one on stage. I was sitting there, standing there going, and I'm bearing in mind I'm 15 or 16 at this point. Yeah. I'm going, well, this is a good turnout. And just carry on. And I could hear the director and the theatre company was just laughing her head off. The thing was, again, it felt like 5 minutes gone past before one girl came on, Man John was one of the other characters in the scene. I went, oh, hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hey, you seen anybody else yet? And she was like, nope, not seen anybody. He was like, okay. And eventually I started like really piling on. So like, oh, hey, you're all here. Get on here now. Come on.
Yeah. No, I've had a similar thing again when I was doing like GCSE drama. We were doing a play called The Virtuous Burglar, and I was the titular burglar, and there was meant to be the couple on stage whose house it is that I'm going to burgle, and I'm waiting in the wings. I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to be going on in a minute, and I look across to the other wing. And I can see 2 of the performers, the couple of performers playing the couple. And even though I see them there, I look onto the stage and there's no one on stage. And I'm like, what's going on? And I look back round and they're standing there with the script that they'd completely lost where they were, obviously. And I was like, this is awful. The stage is empty. So I just ran out onto the stage and I started... just making up, right, okay, so what am I going to get? I felt like I can't do my lines because I'm going to need to do them at the appropriate time. So I just need to be like, oh, okay, I'm casing the joint sort of thing. And I was like, oh no, they're coming back. And I ran off stage and I looked at them, I was like, get on the stage at them. And they came out, they did whatever. And then they exited when they were supposed to. And I came out, and I think the story had me like hiding in a grandfather clock or something like this. And then at a certain point, I'm discovered, and then the stuff's meant to unfold. From my second line, it became apparent that they didn't actually remember any of their lines, both of them. Oh, no. And so I learned all these lines. It was when I was doing GCSE. It was quite possibly the first big thing I had to do. and I learned everything, and I didn't get a chance to perform almost any of it because I just had to improvise my way through. Okay, so this is vaguely the plot. So yeah, these things happen, and they happen in wrestling too.
They do. So at wrestling,
yeah.
So I remember. I don't think it's ever like a story, but I did allude to it on a podcast or something later. I remember seeing a Progress show where there was a tag team match, and one of the teams was, one of the teams is a guy called Nathan Cruz, and him and his partner, again, I'm not going to mention because he was implicated in the whole speaking out thing, but him and his partner came out. One of them had a jacket, one had a cape, and everything like that. And they took their stuff off, put it in the corner. They suddenly, their opponents come out and done their entrance as well. And suddenly they both went backstage again. And they came out and sort of did their entrance again. They had the jacket, had the cape and everything like that back there, and they just did it again. But just to get some booze and things like that for the heat, stall a little for the crowd and stall a little bit. But one of the guys who owned the promotion alluded to it on a podcast or a live stream of some kind. About trying to find a jacket and a cape or something like that in a very heated situation. So what I can surmise is that they had discarded their entrance gear, put it in their corner of the ring, and one of the attendants had come along and taken it backstage. But they needed that stuff there because it was going to be part of their finish.
Oh.
They're going like one of them was going to throw the cape in the face of one of the opponents and then roll them up or something like that. It played it to the finish. So as soon as they saw all their garb, it was all gone. They were like, "Where the hell's it gone?" So they went backstage, and there's a way of getting it back out there. Apparently, Nathan Cruz went, "Right, let's just go out and do our entrance again with no music and just do it all over again." So that's just getting yourself out of situations like that. I always find very weird. So on Twitter, a guy called Willpower is his name, wrestler called Willpower. He said on a Christmas show, he put a guy called Coach Wicked into a corner as planned. Then, more for my own amusement, I ruffled his hair and shouted, "Merry Christmas, Tiny Tim." He got me back by backing me into the corner, rubbing my belly and saying, "Save some jelly for the rest of us." And the crowd loved it, apparently. This is a really good one. A guy called David Francisco, who's a Portuguese wrestler, but he's wrestled over here for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And so quite a well-respected guy and trainer over there. And he's come up with a brilliant story. This is really, really funny. So it's a little bit long, but bear with me on this one. So, as I say, David Francisco is Twitter is at @dfrancisco_1. So he says, years ago, I worked for a promotion that only ran spot shows. They booked me in the top heel tag team, and we'd always lose, always. One day, one of my opponents was an Undertaker ripoff. The finish was we were going to cheat, but before the ref counts 3, the lights go out. And when they came back on, I'd be prone on the floor, ready to be pinned. Everything went well during rehearsals and all was well. Except that the main light that lighted the ring up during the show was not on during rehearsals. We cheat, I'm pinning as planned, the ref counts 2, and only 75% of the lights go off. The ref counts 3, as he was told to, because no one would see it because the lights would be off. For the first 3 seconds, I locked eyes with the promoter and the lights dude, and I interrupted the awkward silence with, "We won! Play our music, raise my hand!" My partner comes to me in the ring and says, "It only took a production error, but we finally have a win."
Wow.
Never before or since have I celebrated a win like that. We took over 5 minutes to go to the back, did victory laps everywhere. Half the crowd realised what had happened and they joined us. I got showered in water and beer. We still laugh about it years later.
That's very cool. I like that.
Production errors are the bane of any sort of
live show
situation, whatever sort of show you end up doing.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. There's a power cut. Oh, yeah, I haven't seen this one. Oh, okay. So another one involving Willpower, but this is from a guy called JD Howells. He says there was a power cut at the Southeast Pro show, and after a long wait, the show was allowed to continue with no lighting or audio. The crowd totally died, but Willpower came out singing an improvised theme song, and from zero whipped the crowd up into a joyful frenzy. Heartful.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, it's funny that there's been some like big errors like this, where things have gone wrong, productions, things have broken or whatever, which like you've seen even on like WWE TV and stuff like this, it comes to my mind that a few times we've had it where the top rope might break, and they've had to like continue without a top rope. I think one of the most famous incident of that, not that it was particularly public, was when the Rockers won the World Tag Team titles from the Hart Foundation. That had happened in the match, and they decided that the match wasn't good enough quality to put on TV because of this, and then they just put the belts back on the Harts because they weren't going to air the match, and the Rockers never became Tag Team Champions as a result.
Yeah, there's another example of a match continuing in a fault like that. I think it's a Ricochet versus Willow Spray Match from WCPW.
Okay.
I believe it's on
I
YouTube.
think I've seen the clip.
Their top ropes broke during the first couple of spots, like the first minute.
Yeah.
And it just completely pinged off and everything like that during like a double handspring spot. And then they just had to go without a top rope, which this was Ospreay and Ricochet without a top rope in their thing. But there's a very funny bit where Ricochet says to go do a top rope moonsault, so he gets the top rope, just lays it on the floor in front of him, stands on it on the canvas, and moonsaults all the spray from there. So that was another one I think I put on a group page just saying what was their favourite funny moments. I had a DM from a wrestler slash valet slash host called Priscilla, Queen of the Ring.
Yeah.
And he says, from witnessing an injury in another match where the guy misses shouting, hold on, what is he saying here? Oh, I have to reread this really quickly, sorry. So he's had good and bad moments and things like that. So it goes from witnessing an injury in another match where a guy misses and shouted, stop wrestling, he's hurt for real, call an effing ambulance, and walking her boyfriend out to a silent room where I did a run-in, trash talked the guy, and said as part of the trash talk, you better not block my shot and give me your finish, which he did, causing a great pop and a relaxed audience. So he came out and helped the guy to basically do something before he got taken out to the back, which sort of save a little bit of face for him. He also says that he was thinking he was super over as a comedy heel. So I should say probably she. Sorry, I may have misspoke there. So she came out to once upon a time thinking she was a mega super over as a comedy heel, only to find one of her testicles had popped out of their gear with the promoters watching.
Amazing.
Things like that.
I feel like that's happened a few times. There is a botch, one of like the early botchamanias I saw, where someone got tangled up in the ropes or something, and they completely lost their trunks. Like either down to the ankles or completely off or something, and then they're just sat there, like covering their modesty and just trying to scoot along the ground. Have you seen this clip?
It's an early, I think it's a Zack Ryder match. I think it's a job or something like that, and I think during a squash match on Wcpw TV, that happened where the guys. Okay, well that would be like ripped, and they had to do supercut zooms and all this sort of stuff on there, and end the match really quickly. I think things like that have happened. There was it's only for a fleeting moment, but I think she changed her gear thankfully the time after. But I remember Awesome Kong's debut on TNA, and during, the TNA Knockouts Gauntlet, which has all the stuff going on, and so she gets knocked, taken over the top rope, but as the top rope goes, her entire front of the thing gets pinged off, and there's nothing else underneath. So it's literally for a moment, just like, and it's like, oh, did we just see that? Yeah. So I think she managed to change her gear and make sure that didn't happen again after that.
Yeah, there's been these. There's the William Regal nude incident.
Yeah, we chatted about this before, didn't we? We weren't sure if that was intentional or not, but.
There's been a bunch of those. Like I seem to remember, like it would always be like whether it planned or not, but there'd be. I remember there was like a Kurt Hennig match where like someone may have pulled on the trunks or something like this. Like you know how he'd like take a strap down or something like this. Like now he means business, so he'd like like this, where someone like pulled or something, and he just wrestled about like 3 or 4 minutes where he didn't correct his tights. And it's on like an old pay-per-view or from like an old Saturday night's main event or Superstars or something. I'm fairly 99% certain it was a Kurt Hennig match. And yeah, so Bear's in the comments and asked, was that the worst wardrobe malfunction in pro wrestling? It's got to be. It's got to be one of these.
Well, it's got to be.
Yeah. Other instances of improvisation sometimes comes in promos through like botches. Obviously, there was Batista going to go against Triple H as the heel, and he clearly forgot everything he was supposed to be saying, just going on about, just give me what I want. And then Helmsley was clearly struggling, where he's like, well, because Helmsley is the face, should have just been like, you want the match? Helmsley should have been the one who was like, I want to fight you. But it was Batista seemingly begging to have this match, and for some reason Helmsley not taking him up on it.
It's like instances like that make me hate the fact that WWE are so reliant on scripted promos. Things like that, and then I saw like a clips of an interview John Moxley did this week. I quoted a few times where he says he couldn't quite believe that he had to be handed like the script and like anything word for word and everything. And he says especially when it's a 74-year-old madman that's at the helm of everything, who doesn't know how these characters really would speak and things like that. So it's I mean, you have to go back to Roman Reigns having to say succotash to know how bad some of these scripted things can be.
Yeah.
And if you just leave people to sort of like do what they sort of want to do, and you've got good talkers, people like Moxley or CM Punk back in the day, who apparently had like a little bit more leniency and sort of like just sort of did what he wanted to do and sort of always said, look, just give me the bullet points and I'll work around it.
And it's crazy to think that's how it used to be. They'd like say, okay, this is the points you're trying to get across. Go out there and do it.
Yeah, but they want everyone to be exactly the same. They want everyone to wrestle the same, to bump the same, to talk the same. It's just dull. That's why it's so dull. And
when you think that Suplex City was an ad lib by Brock Lesnar, and he's not even a talker. He said it during a match, the audience heard it, the microphones picked it up, and that's now one of his things. So, people can just improv and come up with like golden ideas.
Gold, tells you.
Yeah, okay, so
that's why we do improv.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know that I can find anything like all of my stuff that I said about, but just to say some of like the interactions I had on Twitter, on social media from some of the wrestlers. These aren't anything spectacular, and obviously we didn't do that show at the time, but just because otherwise it will be too long before it's worth even digging these out again. I managed to get likes, retweets, replies and stuff from Dustin Rhodes, from Chris Van Vliet, who I believe is involved with all Elite Wrestling, or at least was at one point, but interviews everyone and puts out like these shoot interviews. I got a reply from Crowbar, who used to be in WCW.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so let's see if I can find what I actually asked him here, because this was the most interesting. I said, hey Crowbar, always wondered, have you ever actually used an actual crowbar to crowbar something open? And Crowbar responded, yes, did a lot of DIY stuff when I was an early homeowner and used a crowbar to /pry bar often, especially during demo phase. Don't know what that means. I purchased my home shortly after WCW, so made for a funny conversation with the cashier. And I said, that's amazing. A crowbar company should have hired you to promote them and give you a lifetime supply. To which Crowbar replied, missed opportunity, lol. So that was Crowbar. I got
it's kind of nice when like guys who are established can sort of like laugh at themselves a little bit and then sort of
yeah, exactly. I got a like from Alexander Hammerstone, who wrestles for MLW. Oh, yeah. He often likes or replies. Do you remember there was this thing on Twitter? This isn't from the same period. I'll see if I can just remember some of the classic ones though, where everyone was saying they'd show something and they'd say, I'm telling my kids this is, and they might show the Young Bucks and say, I'm telling my kids this was the Rock and Roll Express, or stuff like this. I said about Alexander Hammerstone, something to the effect of, I'm telling my kids that Alexander Hammerstone used to be known as the ECW Arena, because obviously that was the Hammerstein Ballroom. And he was like, this is the best response ever. So he enjoyed that one. And then, so he follows me on Twitter there. I got a like from the Brooklyn Brawler. Brooklyn Brawler had put something where... I can't find the original post. Let's see if I can find it. Brooklyn Brawler has said, take a second to be thankful for everything in your life. So I responded and said, I'm grateful for 30 plus years of the Brooklyn Brawler. And he liked that.
Aww.
I didn't mean it. I just thought it would get a like. No, I'm joking.
About to say.
Brooklyn Brawler is like the ultimate jobber, isn't he? He's just like a legendary jobber. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Who else? I got Warhorse, who was on AEW this week. He replied to me. Let's see. Okay, so this was actually in reference to you and Sam here.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, written all in capitals in true Warhorse fashion. I put, Warhorse! Can you please let my friends Dave and Sam know I will rule their asses? They don't believe me. To which Warhorse responded, all in capitals, if I say yes, do you promise to rule their asses? And I do. So, yeah, that was from Warhorse.
As far as I know, it's not happened yet, but...
yeah, Austin Creed...
We've also much asked, we haven't seen Sam for months.
I know, right? So Xavier Woods liked my tweet because So one thing that was cool...
Oh, yeah, this is the best thing ever. I pointed this out to you. Xavier Woods,
yeah. Okay, so what, in the last couple of weeks? Because there's Okay, so this might be the one you talked about, or it might not. So a while ago now, Xavier Woods responded to someone else, and he used a GIF of me saying yes, 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 and I was like, and I saw that, I was like, oh, there's me, but I didn't share it. So he'd shared a GIF, and it was of me, and I responded to him and said that was me, and that I was pleased about that, and he responded.
Yeah.
But then he liked my tweet. I said to him, because of Up, Up, Down, Down, and you, Xavier Woods, I've embraced my love of video games and wrestling and started streaming, which was more because of lockdown, but I thought I'd give him credit, and he liked that. So yeah, I got some interactions. There's probably some more. Oh, do you know what? I got a response from Diamond Dallas Page, because, okay, this is a true story for people out there who may or may not be interested in this. I've had quite a few back injuries over the years, herniated discs and stuff like this. And I don't know if I've got the book to hand, but I've used DDP yoga to sort of like help recover from that stuff. And so I said this to Dallas Page, and then DDP yoga and Dallas Page, they responded back to me. They asked me for details on my story. So I've had a few messages back and forth with the team, at least. I won't say it's definitely Dallas, but the team at DDP yoga. So I'll see if that goes anywhere further in the future. Have to get Dallas Page on the show with us to discuss it. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I'm sure we can afford that.
RVD liked to tweet. I can't remember what that was. Don't think it was anything too special. There's another one from Chris Van Vliet. Not sure what it was. Let's have a look what he's put.
Years ago, I had a couple of interactions with William Regal.
Yeah.
On Twitter, and it's mainly because he was doing. You remember when NXT was like the game show sort of format?
Yeah. I much preferred it then. I'm not gonna lie.
So Regal was on commentary for those shows a few times before he was general manager, and there was 2 weeks where he decided to do these random bits of commentary, and one of them was this whole sort of stream of a tale that happens to be all completely collaborated with and made up of Smith's song titles.
Yeah.
And it was like, I said, I asked her what went on, and she said, William, it was really nothing. There was all this sort of thing. And Shakespeare's sister came up to me and said that and just kept going through Smith's song titles this whole thing. That was this whole prepared thing. And then the next week he did something. I think he did Depeche Mode song titles in his next bit as well. And I mentioned at one point to him, so like, oh my god, Smith's last week, Cure the next. I'm hoping for the jam to come up next week. And he just replied, "But I've started something here, haven't I?" And then another time, I think at some point in the commentary thing, he mentioned Starlight Express during his during a comment. I had to read it again, saying, "Thanks for bringing two musical theatre and wrestling together in one form of version of that comment." And he just replied, "When as long as one person gets it, it's all worth it. Thank you very much."
Lovely.
I was like, "Oh, what a lovely man."
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, what one of the great things with like social media is that, and the wrestlers, they love it. Like, not all of them do it. Some obviously do it a lot more than others, but some of them absolutely love to interact with you on social media, and it's really cool. And for a wrestling fan, it's super exciting when they do reply or respond or retweet or anything like this. But yeah, I've probably had. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, go on.
I was going to say I've probably had some other golden ones which like were just like over the last few months which aren't coming back to me at the moment, but.
I think we can get like a positive interaction, as I say. I think that some wrestlers are so burned out on getting negative reactions all the time, and I think it's easy to sort of like hear people saying, "Oh, if you're just going to be negative, I don't want to hear it," and all this sort of stuff. And you can. I think, as we know as performers, you do have to learn to accept criticism as long as it's sort of like a valid thing. I think if these people that go on there and just trolls and just will just slag you off for every reason they can think of, then that's obviously got to be horrendous for them. And I can understand why pro wrestlers get so annoyed with fans on Twitter, because it does seem that they cannot be pleased a lot of the time.
Yeah.
A few bits
on that point, Bear in the comments has said, follow Evil Uno on Twitch. He is so kind and nice to talk to. Quite possibly. I actually tweeted Evil Uno a few months ago, and like the tweet, you know, I'm sure he probably is a very nice guy, but I was just because he always tweets in character for the most part, at least, about I'm going to do this as like I'm going to capture those championship belts, look so tasty, or whatever he says. I was like, I tweeted him. I was just like, Uno, I don't know why, but every time you tweet, I just want to insult you. And I said that, and I said to him, that probably means that you do a good job, because he's a heel, right? And I think he might have liked that. I can't remember now.
Well, it used to be very prolific before they sort of became Dark Order and before AEW. I mean, even before then. Because I've been a big fan of those two for a long time. They used to be called Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
And they would be on things like Shikara. They used to be a bit of a jobber tag team in the Ring of Honor for a little bit. But they're always really entertaining. And then they used to do these sort of like a lot of stuff, as you say on Twitter and Twitch and things like that. They also used to have a YouTube channel where sometimes they put up cookery video, and other times the one I really liked watching was they would just have like an old school game of some kind that they have themselves against like four of them or something like that in a little game off. Yeah. And they'd have every week they'd have like we do with the XStreamed Improv trophy and everything, or the championship, like the microphone trophy on the podcast and the championship belt, the live shows. They have their own little award thing that someone win on a week-to-week basis, and they're always playing a old school wrestling game or something most recent to be out there, and they'd obviously have them in a corner of the screen with the main screen being there and like it would Twitch. But it was just often really funny, their interactions with each other and the ridiculous things that would happen and all on and off. It was quite entertaining. But then they sort of like about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, maybe they sort of they deleted every bit of that. Every tweet they'd ever made was gone. Wow. Every video they'd made gone from their YouTube entirely, and it just said something new was going to happen and everything. And there was that point that become Evil Uno. He got the different mask, and Studios was wearing become Stu Grayson was wearing like the kind of the wall paint sort of face paint stuff. And and they sort of suddenly they were Super Smash Brothers, but they were the serious, damaged, evil incarnation of them, and like that. And it was just really good use of social media, just of saying like, this is our new thing. All your fun stuff you knew us as, that's gone. We're now this group, and they did. That's cool. So they were Super Smash Brothers literally until AEW started, and they basically didn't have a name for it because they debuted with that weird little segment of the pay-per-view. They suddenly appeared. With their hordes people, they didn't have a name for it. I think the commentators were like Excalibur's going, I know who these guys are, but I don't know what to call them.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think of the Dark Order in AEW?
Much better than they were when they started. I think that they've got a little bit more grounding now. I think they've got with Brody Lee being the leader and everything, and them starting to give personalities to the masked henchmen now. I think they're doing. I mean, I'm not following it rigorously, but I think they're now known as like 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
and
sort of they've got like numbers and stuff.
And they're sort of like it's almost like they're guys that were on Dark and now they were losing and now following the Dark Order to get some sort of focus and such like. And I think it's a nice way of integrating them. They haven't done anything. They haven't followed up with this Anna Jay girl yet, because they did this thing on Dynamite about a month or so ago. I think she lost a match, and they basically escorted her out of the ring and helped her out of the ring and everything. And they haven't really done anything with her yet, which makes me think they might be doing something with this tag cut thing that they're doing.
Yeah,
maybe he might be involved with that. But so having a female member of the group is going to be I think it'll be quite intriguing. But I think they've gotten better. As I say, as far as Uno and Grayson, I've always been a fan of them as a team. So yeah.
Yeah, do you know, like I've enjoyed their matches. I don't have a problem with their matches. I feel like a lot of this stuff they've done, I was really, really intrigued when they were like teasing the Exalted one. I kind of struggle with what they've done with Brody Lee, because clearly it's good that they've brought in this leader. I'm not sure I'm really into his Vince McMahon character. It feels like he was annoyed at WWE for not using him. And there was this idea that, I'll come out, I'll dress like Vince McMahon, I'll put in these references. He got straight away a world title shot, which he didn't win. And I feel like, well, what's the Dark Order doing? What are they achieving? What is the ultimate plan? I feel like now that their leader is out in the open and he's just kind of like a Vince McMahon but has no power. Because this for me, this could have been the best storyline if they had put things, and maybe this could still happen, but if they had put things throughout where things happened and they could turn around at a certain point and say all of these weird events were because this person had been part of the Dark Order and this person had been part of the Dark Order, and the reason why the cameraman botched this or something like this or didn't show this is because he wanted to and show this person looking bad or something, where they'd got all of these things where the Dark Order have seized control or something like this. But he's just kind of there now, and I don't quite know what their long-term plan is for how it's going to develop, other than I'm the leader of this evil group and we'll occasionally do evil things.
Well, there's a bit of bad luck, I think, happened in there, because I don't think Brody Lee was originally going to be in that spot for the world title match. I can't remember who it was originally going to be, but
interesting.
I don't think that was the plan initially. But I don't know off the top of my head who that was going to be originally, but I think someone got injured and they had to go, and they went with Brody. So he mentioned it, so like he basically got it on like 2 weeks' notice or something.
Yeah, it was really
promo. So like, he sort of built him up a little bit at the end of it, saying, "Look, he was thrown into the title challenge on 2 weeks' notice. He fought like a boss, but and everything like that." So yeah, but I mean, I think I'm glad. I think I'm some friends of mine who are on this podcast this week. They sort of did mention that AEW do seem to like be quite into their long-term booking and things like that, and I think that's what we might have to get more used to with AEW, is that everything is, and hopefully will be more of a long-term thing instead of like just shooting their load straight away.
Yeah.
And obviously with some instances you do want to have that. So like for instance, when FTR came in, I think everyone expected that next as soon as we can go have a Young Bucks FTR match, which I'm assuming is going to happen at the pay-per-view anyway.
Yeah,
but they are doing a lot of stuff where they're on the same side at the moment, so they are sort of they're building to that gradually by having it coming from a different angle. I think there's a lot of rumours at the minute that Cody might be forming a Horseman style group with FTR.
Definitely. So have you not seen Dynamite this week?
I've not seen this week yet.
Okay, so this is no major. This is no major spoiler, but there is a segment where they've got FTR doing like a contract signing for something.
Yeah.
And Arn Anderson comes in to consult with them about, like, because he's like the expert in tag teams or something. And I'm like, okay. A couple of weeks back, they'd got Tully Blanchard watching the Cody Rhodes match, very interested. Yeah. So Tully and Arn. The rumours have been that it would be FTR, Cody, and Sean Spears, where obviously they'd have to address why Sean and Cody will now coexist again. But I think I'd say to me the weak link in that lot is Sean Spears, just because after his initial push where he knocked out Cody with a chair, split his head and everything, he then lost, and he's kind of been floating ever since, in my opinion, since. But I think some new version of the Four Horsemen, Flair behind me, would be a great idea. I also think that if it's a heel group, Cody Rhodes becoming a heel, an out-and-out heel, is the solution to the storyline problem they've got of he can never go for the world title again. Because as a heel, he can just decide, well, yeah, I'm going to. He can do it, and then he can get the heat on him for the fact that everyone forever, if he's world champion, can call him out for the fact that you said you'd never do this again. Because it was only ever a self-imposed thing. It wasn't that MJF said, if you lose to me, no, it was to Jericho. In fact, it was, if you lose to me, you can never challenge for it again. It was Cody that says, if I don't beat you, I'll never challenge for it again. So he can retract it and then be a cowardly heel in that sense. I do, just coming back to what you said though, and this is going to again be because of the pandemic, I think somewhat, where they've had to perhaps accelerate plans and stuff like this and change up some of their plans. But I do feel like they've brought in people and they've put them into big matches, I think, a little bit too quick. So then, unless they win, I think it kills their momentum. Brian Cage came in, won the Money in the Bank ladder match, essentially, and then had the world title match, which he didn't win. And Taz threw in the towel, and I don't know what more they'll do with that, but my feeling is that they're not really going to do anything more with that. Because they now seem to be putting Cage in a tag team with Ricky Starks, and it seems like there's just a change in focus. And MJF may now be chasing the world title, in which case Brian Cage came in, world title shot, got his pretend world championship, the the FTW championship.
Yeah.
And so he's not really in the world title picture at the moment, and it's like, okay, so you might have killed his momentum. Lance Archer came in, a lot of hype, tournament final with Cody Rhodes, didn't win. I don't even know what Lance Archer is doing at the moment, and there's a few times, same with Brody Lee. Sorry, you're going to say?
No, I was going to say, last time I was just watching a bit of AEW yesterday, and the last thing I saw Lance Archer do was to go in a locker room, beat up some jobbers, and literally launch someone's head into the ceiling. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in wrestling. Laughed my head off on that one. It's hilarious.
Okay, I didn't see that clip, but do you see what I mean? There are some people who they could as real heels, especially if they're like bigger guys. Like Cage isn't the tallest, but he looks like a monster. Archer obviously is a huge guy, and I worry that they could have protected these guys a bit more. Brody Lee, like you say, if there was a reason for it, then they did what they had to do. Where I feel like they have played some of their cards, where it's like, okay, so now these heels are going to have to do something to build up their position a bit more.
I would love it that if they just had those connections and had Brody, Lance, and Cage as one just sort of like massive hoss trio. I think that'd be a great stable, personally. But
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it'll be interesting because there's always rumours that they're going to bring in a trios championship, and AEW do see, like we said, it's not a trio, but they seem to be setting up a four horseman kind of stable. I won't. Do you know anything that happened on AEW this week?
I know something's happened. I know that they're setting up Moxley versus Darby Allin again next week or something like that. Is that
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what they're having. Darby Allin's back doing his usual thing of getting dropped and having Brian Cage drop him on different points. What else happened this week? I do know they've started sort of the brackets for this women's tag team cup.
Yeah.
Thing, and we've had the sudden return of someone I never thought I'd see in wrestling ever again.
Who's that?
or formerly known as Cameron, Ariane.
Okay.
I think her name was Ariane or something like that. But one of the Funkadactyls, the other Funkadactyl, is Naomi.
She was on
She's suddenly
AEW. I
appeared
didn't
backstage in a vignette with
I missed that entirely.
Rose.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I agree. That's very random.
Very random. But yeah, I did see the end of the was it the tag team match with who was it? It was anyway, but basically Zack Ryder's turned up on AEW.
Okay, so what that was Cody versus Warhorse.
Oh god, it was Warhorse, yes.
And afterwards the Dark Order attacked Cody. And the thing was that was a shame. And we can speak a little bit more about Warhorse, obviously I mentioned him earlier, in a moment. But the thing that was a shame is that at the end of the match, the Dark Order came out to attack Cody. Warhorse pushed Cody out the way to start fighting the Dark Order, then got launched out the ring, and then Matt Cardona came to make the save, and Warhorse wasn't even there. And like Warhorse has actually shared something on Twitter where it's showing Warhorse looking a bit miffed as Cody and Zack Ryder are in the ring, and it's like you've just literally forgotten I was here, which was funny. But I don't know. I like Warhorse. I've been a fan of Warhorse. There's a great documentary about Warhorse, and he's great on social media. And everything I've seen of him, I enjoy. Excuse me, what you do? Sorry, I'm just dying here, Dave. I enjoy the stuff he does. But if you haven't seen the match, check it out. I think he did a reasonable showing. I don't think he necessarily will have convinced everyone to that he should have his spot, because obviously there was a lot of comments on Twitter and things about he's doing the Ultimate Warrior thing, but he looks so small compared to even to Cody, and Cody isn't a giant. And without an audience there, he was doing his head rocking stuff. And the thing to me that is, Warhorse, obviously you're watching the show, but the thing I would say Warhorse, I would have said that he needs to have done different to his presentation is he'd hit a move, because there's no crowd reaction, because there's the few people there. It doesn't have that wow factor when he hit a lariat and Cody turned inside out, and then he starts his head rocking thing, and it was all right, but it seemed like, it was all right, but you're over celebrating for this smaller guy just to have knocked Cody down with a clothesline. And what I would suggest to him, to his presentation, is if you want a bit more warrior in there, rather than the head rocking, have a bit more of the shake, because it gives the sense that you're still about to launch into something. So it was a good showing. He hit a very good flying elbow. He hit his double foot stomp. He hit all of what he could to show everyone what he does. But with there being no audience there, with him having the gimmick, which is the Ultimate Warrior gimmick, but looking so much smaller, looking like a cruiserweight, I worry that he won't quite be a fit, because they don't have a cruiserweight division. It'll be like, well, you look like you want to be a main eventer, but you're not going to be able to probably hang. That's what was my thought, though.
Yeah, I haven't seen the match yet, but I've been seeing little bits more of Warhorse lately from independent wrestling TV and everything like that. And it's a really fun gimmick and everything like that, but I haven't been completely blown away by him in ring yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's possibly going to be an issue, but at any rate, obviously he can do more things than Warrior could ever do in terms of in ring, though, so that's fine. But obviously, Warrior had the sort of star power and things like that. But yeah, no, we'll have to see. I think I've got to say, I think the week before though, with Eddie Kingston's answering the open challenge, was a star-making moment. If that had been in front of the crowd, that would have been even better. But he absolutely blew me away from that bit. I've always known how good Eddie Kingston is, but the right thing with him, they had him go out there and gave him the microphone straight away. If you've got Eddie Kingston on a show, you need to put the mic on him.
Yeah,
he's just that good at promo. Absolutely, just blew away with Cody and running arm down as well, telling him, look, if you talk one more time, I'm on my good mother's eyes, I will gouge your eye out. Just things like that. But it's because Eddie makes it real. He's not a showman as such.
I completely agree.
But he's very good at making it real and making it seem like completely legit. And again, it's another guy that. I mean, I remember years ago when he was sort of part of like one of the sort of WWE Performance Center tryouts and things like that. And there was this guy on Twitter that was going, "Oh, he's like the lead guy in this tryout series," and everything like that. And it sort of went to a story on WWE.com about the tryout and everything like that, and all the picture of all the people that were there. And I said, but notable by his absence was Eddie Kingston. And even though they mentioned him in the blurb saying he was there and everything, but he wasn't in the picture. And I thought, well, if he's done so well, then why is he not in the picture? I kept quite asking this guy, but he's not in the picture. It can't have been that great if he was in the picture. If he's not in the picture, did he like have a? Did they tell him something he didn't want to know, or something like that, or he didn't want to? Or he said something that they didn't want to hear, or something like that, and they cut him off. Later that week, he turned up in Impact. So it was like, and even then, I sort of just went, when you see, obviously it didn't go that well because he just turned up as part of this random trio with James Storm and Brad.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "Oh no, it's a bit of thing. He's just doing this for the moment." And then he's going to do it. Like, you don't know anything, mate. You do nothing. So again, he's another guy that doesn't need a script. I think he would have really not worked well with the over-scripted part of it anyway.
Joe, it's interesting. I heard a similar story, or made me think of a similar story. The Young Bucks tried out for WWE, and they did it knowing that they weren't going to go there. And so they were kind of told the things like, oh, okay, just go out there, have a standard match. But they went for this tryout and they just did a Young Bucks match with flying everything. And apparently William Regal was like, now that is how you do a tryout sort of thing. And apparently blew them away. Whereas I think they went out saying, well, we'll do it, but we're just going to showboat a little bit and... we'll have fun, and then we've done it. And then it was either when they were just going to go to New Japan, do stuff with Ring of Honor. I think it was post TNA when they were Generation Me or whatever they were. But they knew they weren't going to go for a developmental WWE kind of thing anyway. But obviously, it didn't work out there. And WWE really has this sense that you've got to conform, which is then obviously why CM Punk didn't get along with things. It's why, you even with people like Ryback, Rusev at the moment has apparently this week said that he's done wrestling permanently. Have you heard that? No, he's literally going to say he's going to be on Twitch and stuff like that. He's a streamer now, so that was unexpected. I think he'll be back at some point.
I know he's suffering from COVID at the moment, so that's why it doesn't really help there. But that's a shame if he hasn't. I think that was one of the things as well. One of the rumours I had heard as well that they were hoping that he was going to be the main debut guy for Impact. That whole sort of Streamless anniversary debut. So hoping that he was going to be part of it. You may have said that actually. Now I think about it.
Yeah, quite possibly. I just throw out these random rumours. Okay, so Bear says, unpopular opinion, I don't like the Young Bucks. I also asked when we will do the game suggestions we asked for a couple of shows ago. Well, we've said about some of the social interactions. I'm going to make this happen because we've been speaking about doing the improv show themed around professional wrestling. So perhaps we'll save it for some of that. That will happen in August. We'll make that happen.
It'll happen post World Cup time, maybe.
World Cup, yeah.
Yeah. Get a bunch of us together a wrestling one then.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, any other bits, Dave? Because I'm going to have to dash off in a few minutes myself.
No, that's all. Just to say, I did watch some of the shows we talked about at the end of last week's show. I managed to watch one of the Game Changer Wrestling shows. Don't know if you saw any of the clips from it,
no.
But they were at this sort of like this bay at in New Jersey. Atlantic City, I think. But anyway, they were at the open out bay in New Jersey, and the backdrop for the ring was just this coast, this beautiful blue sky and blue sea, with the occasional helicopter or plane flying by or boat sailing by, and people paragliding and sailing past the ring. And aside from the death matches, which I just don't like to watch, it seemed like a really fun show, and all the people around obviously had their masks on. They're all socially distancing and everything really well, and there's really good stuff on there. We had sort of the shock return of Leo Rush to the ring. He sort of had his what he's claiming is to be his last match on the second show.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, I've not watched that one yet, but I did watch the Joe Janela versus Yoshihiko match, and it turned out the guy who was operating Yoshihiko was Leo Rush, so attacked him after the match. And it was really fun to watch because you could see some. I'd sort of realised what the surprise was before I'd seen it, but it was quite fun to sort of see sort of reactions of people at ringside. And there's one guy going, "It's Leo, it's Leo!" Because obviously you can tell from his height and size and everything. And there's like a Leo Rush Joe Janela sort of history. It goes back from like CZW and other indies and things like that. So it's a nice sort of way, I guess, to cap off his career if he is calling it a day. Yeah, I don't know what's happening this weekend in terms of shows, but in Japan I've got a few shows on at the moment, but there's nothing really consequential happening there at the moment. They seem to be very much the same cards all the time at the moment, which is a bit weird.
Yeah. There you go. Bear in the comments said, before you go, can you guys do a demonstration of what your wrestling entrance would look like? I'm going to think on that. We'll do that another time. Just because even in terms of the different improv sort of stuff, one of the ideas would be about making an entrance. So we can save that for another time.
Maybe that could be one of the games we do for the wrestling edition of...
make an entrance, exactly.
Get some say what our character's name is going to be, sort of characterism, and maybe you can play some of your music from your library of stuff.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dave. Yeah, earthquake here. So, on that note, guys, we will wrap that up there. Dave, thank you so much once again. It's always a pleasure. And we'll find some like more topics for future weeks. Bear says you guys are awesome. Well, thank you, Bear. We appreciate that. And there'll be lots more coming up. So shall we tune up the band?
We shall indeed. Barefoot this week.
Okay, go for it. Matt Riddle style. Or perhaps,
Sorry,
I knew you wouldn't like that. Style. Okay, so Rikishi style back in the day. The head shrinkers were barefoot. Kevin Von Erich style. Von Erich. Lurch. Kevin Von Erich style. Ready. And Superkick. Mania. Okay, bye everyone.